7 a.m. September 15th, 2017. Boulder, Colorado, woke to a cold, quiet early fall morning. A thin mist clung to the low rooftops. The air was so clean that you could clearly hear dry leaves being gently swept along the sidewalk by the wind. Elena Vance stood at the front door of her home. She slipped on her backpack, locked the door, and turned her back on the small, familiar house. No one knew that, in that moment, Elena was stepping out of her old life. Not for a walk, but for a journey that would last 365 days in the dark. Elena was 20 years old, an English literature teacher, an ordinary woman living an ordinary life. No enemies, no conflicts, no secrets. Ask the neighbors, and they would say Elena was the kind of person you wanted to know. Gentle, polite, always smiling. Ask her students, and they would say she was one of the few teachers who truly listened. No one, not even Elena herself, could have imagined that this very kindness would be the reason she was chosen. That morning, Elena planned to take a solo hike on a little-known trail. Lost Lake Trail. Not far, but remote enough for someone to briefly escape the world. She didn't bring much with her. There was no need. Because to Elena, this was just a walk. A peaceful afternoon. A trip she was certain would end with her returning home before 6 in the evening. But there are journeys that, from the moment they begin, have no way back. Elena Vance was not reckless. She was careful, so careful that some people found her rigid. She always signed the trail register in national parks. Always left an estimated return time. Always carried a paper map, even when her phone had signal. It wasn't fear. It was habit. A structured way of living. A way of protecting herself in a world that was never truly safe. Elena grew up in an ordinary family in Colorado. Not rich. Not poor. Her parents worked hard. From an early age, Elena found comfort in books. Literature became her refuge. Words gave her the feeling of being understood, of being seen, even when no one in real life said those things out loud. When she became a teacher, Elena brought that same refuge into the classroom. She didn't just teach Shakespeare or Hemingway. She taught her students how to listen to their own emotions, how to accept sadness, how to understand that loneliness was not weakness. But few people knew that Elena herself carried a quiet, personal loneliness. Her adult life moved along in a steady rhythm. Teaching, grading papers, preparing lesson plans, meeting friends on weekends. And when everything became too loud, Elena turned to the forest. Not to conquer it, not to test herself, just to breathe. In the woods, no one demanded that she be strong. No one expected her to smile. There, Elena was simply a small human being walking through vast nature. She loved the feeling of her feet pressing into damp earth. Loved the scent of pine sap. Loved the silence deep enough to hear her own heartbeat. And it was this simple love that led Elena to Lost Lake Trail on that fateful morning. A security camera at the forest entrance recorded a white Toyota Corolla pulling into the gravel lot near the information station. Elena stepped out of the car, closed the door, looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. The parking attendant later recalled that Elena was carrying a small dark gray backpack. Hiking poles. Her stride was steady, unhurried, unconcerned. She signed the trail register. Her handwriting was neat, deliberate. Estimated return, before 6 p.m. A small action. One that would later leave many people choking back tears. Because Elena never broke her schedule. Never left anyone waiting in uncertainty. Around 11:30 a.m., a hiking couple encountered Elena along a narrow stretch of trail near an abandoned quarry. They remembered the moment clearly. She had stopped to study her map. Focused but not tense. Elena looked up, smiled, asked them about the trail ahead. An ordinary question. A deeply human moment. None of them knew that this would be the last time Elena was ever seen as herself. Not afraid. Not running. Not hurt. The old quarry lay in silence. Rusted machinery. Stacked slabs of stone. A place once loud with human activity, now occupied only by wind and long shadows as the sun tilted west. And somewhere within that space, a pair of eyes was watching Elena. Silent. Patient. Not belonging to a random passerby. Elena still hadn't come home. That wasn't like her. Her best friend started sending messages. The first one was playful. The second carried concern. The third was filled with fear. No reply. By midnight, Elena's phone no longer had a signal. Or it had been turned off. The next morning, Boulder woke up as usual. But at the school where Elena taught, there was an empty chair. A teacher who didn't show up. Didn't call. Didn't leave a message. That silence sent a chill through everyone. At 9 a.m. on September 16th, an official search was launched. Elena's car was found exactly where she had parked it. Locked. No signs of tampering. Inside the car were her travel mug, a sweater, and a topographic map marked with her familiar handwritten notes. The backpack was gone. The keys were gone. That confirmed one thing. Elena had gone into the forest. But she never came back out. No one knew that while the entire city was searching the mountains for her, Elena was very close. Terrifyingly close. And trapped somewhere no scream could escape. When Elena's car was discovered in the parking lot, the atmosphere in Boulder shifted instantly. A private worry turned into a collective fear. More than 150 people joined the search. Police officers, park rangers, volunteers, people who had never met Elena, yet were willing to walk into the forest for someone who was missing. Search dogs were brought in. Their heads stayed low, tracking every trace. At first, Elena's scent was clear, starting from the parking lot, continuing along the first stretch of the trail. Then, suddenly it stopped. Not fading, not thinning, but ending completely. As if someone had lifted Elena straight off the ground. The location was a rocky crevice near the old quarry. The terrain was uneven. Slick stone. Deep, lightless gaps between rocks. Search teams combed every square meter. Called her name. Stood still and listened. But the forest answered only with a heavy silence. Helicopters flew low, using thermal imaging. But the dense canopy swallowed every signal. No body heat. No movement. In the days that followed, the weather turned worse. Rain. Fog. Cold wind. With each passing day, the family's hope grew thinner. Her colleagues took time off work to search. Students carried photos of their teacher, taping them to tree trunks. Some believed Elena was simply lost. Others began to fear something far worse. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood. Time was no longer on the side of hope. Underscore 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 underscore. After 15 days of continuous searching, there were no new leads. No signs of a struggle. No clothing. No recorded cries for help. The official search was suspended. The final report stated that Elena may have suffered an accident or been attacked by wildlife. A cold conclusion. No answers. No closure. Elena's family lived suspended between hope and despair. Every ringing phone made their hearts tighten. But every call ended the same way, with nothing they were waiting for. At the school where Elena taught, classroom 42 felt hollow. Chalk marks still lingered on the board. Books remained neatly stacked. A small memorial plaque was placed in the school courtyard. Time passed. People began to mention Elena in whispers. Then less often. Then not at all. But there was one thing neither her family nor the city could have known. Throughout that entire time, Elena was still alive. Not in the forest. Not beneath a rocky crevice. But beneath an ordinary garage. right in the middle of a neighborhood where people pass by every day. 1 year later, on a cold, rainy evening, Boulder was shrouded in gray sheets of water. The door of the police station opened. A woman stepped inside. At first, officers thought she was a homeless person seeking shelter from the rain. But within seconds, the room fell silent. She was so thin she barely resembled a normal human body. Bones pressed visibly beneath pale skin. Her clothes were torn. The smell of dampness and metal clung to her. She stood there, trembling, staring into empty space. And then she spoke, barely above a whisper. "I'm Elena Vance." No one believed it at first. But when her fingerprints were checked, all doubt disappeared. The woman standing before them was the same person who had vanished nearly a year earlier. Elena weighed less than 90 pounds. Deep, old scars marked her wrists and ankles, the unmistakable traces of metal chains. On her face were strange indentations, as if something heavy had been pressed against her skin for a very long time. When doctors asked her questions, Elena didn't cry. She didn't scream. She only looked down. Her voice was hoarse, as if she hadn't spoken to anyone in ages. She said she had been held captive. Not for days, not for weeks, but for nearly a year. The entire city was shaken. Fear spread like a cold along the spine. Because it meant that while people had been searching the mountains for Elena's body, the person who imprisoned her had been free the entire time. Living close. Far closer than anyone had ever imagined. It took Elena many days before she could begin to talk. The memories did not come in order. They were fragmented, broken, like shards of shattered glass. She remembered the blow from behind. No warning, no sound, just a sharp explosion of pain in her head. Then darkness swallowed everything. When she came to, Elena was blindfolded. Her mouth tasted of blood. She could hear a vehicle moving. For a long time. A very long time. She had no idea where she was being taken. The room where she was held was a sealed block of concrete. No windows. No natural light. The walls were lined with thick soundproofing material, making every noise meaningless. Her captor always wore a mask. His voice was altered, cold, mechanical, stripped of anything human. He came at different hours, with no pattern, no routine. He never allowed Elena to know whether it was day or night. Food was minimal. Water was just enough to keep her from dying. Elena said the most terrifying part wasn't hunger or pain. It was the feeling of being erased. No name, no time, no one knowing that you exist. Every day in that basement was a battle, between holding on to herself and letting go just enough to survive. She measured time by her heartbeat, by the number of times the door opened, by the brief moments when light flared and vanished again. Elena didn't know that, above ground, people had begun to think of her as an old memory. And beneath the earth, she was learning how to exist inside a hell created by another human being. Elena couldn't remember which day it was beneath the ground. In the lightless concrete room, time had lost all meaning. There were only chains of days stitched together by hunger, cold, and fear. That night began like every other. Silent. Suffocating. Then Elena heard a strange sound. Not footsteps. Not the familiar scrape of metal. Water. At first it was faint. A slow drip. Like rain falling somewhere far away. But within minutes, water began leaking from the ceiling of the bunker. Cold drops splashed against her skin. Elena panicked. She stood up. The water level rose quickly, seeping through cracks in the concrete. The cold numbed her legs. In that confined space, the water crept higher and higher, like a warning that death was closing in. She screamed. Not because she believed anyone would hear her, but because survival does not allow silence. Then the steel door opened. He appeared. For the first time, Elena heard panic in the footsteps of the man who had imprisoned her. He was rushed, uncontrolled. The cold precision was gone in an instant. In the chaos, as water flooded the garage floor above, Elena saw something on a workbench. A large wrench. Heavy. Cold. When he turned his back, trying to force the hatch closed, Elena gathered every ounce of strength she had left. She gripped the wrench with both hands. And struck. No thought. No hesitation. He collapsed onto the wet concrete with a dull, hollow sound. Elena didn't wait. She ran. Through the open garage door. Into the darkness of the forest. Barefoot. No jacket. No direction. She ran until her lungs burned. Until her body was on the verge of collapse. She didn't feel the sharp rocks or branches whipping her face. There was only one thought in her mind. Get away. As far away as possible. Elena moved through the night. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know how long she had been walking. The forest at night was nothing like the forest by day. It was dense, dark, and it swallowed sound whole. At times she fell. At times she crawled. Sometimes she kept going only by fixing her eyes on a faint, distant light. At nearly 2 a.m., a security camera at a small roadside gas station captured a blurry image. A gaunt figure moving unevenly, occasionally glancing back toward the forest, as if afraid the darkness itself was chasing her. The gas station owner later said he heard a scream. High. Sharp. But in that area, the sounds of wild animals were common. He never stepped outside. Elena kept going. Toward Boulder. Guided by fragments of memory. By sheer will. When she finally reached the police station, her legs were almost completely numb. Her body was exhausted. But she remained standing. Because beyond that door was light. And beyond that light was life. Elena's escape was more than survival. It was a declaration that even in the deepest darkness, a human being can still rise. After Elena was taken to the hospital, the investigation was reopened. But this time, it carried a different name. Kidnapping. Unlawful imprisonment. Torture. Police began with what they had. The area around the gas station. Reclusive individuals living near the forest. Isolated homes. A man named Samuel Thorne quickly became the primary suspect. He lived alone. Had a violent temper. And had an old basement behind his house. He was arrested. The media labeled him a mountain monster. The public breathed a sigh of relief. People wanted to believe it was over. But the truth was not that simple. Forensics raised doubts. The soil on Elena's clothing did not match the soil near Thorne's property. The rope found there carried no biological trace of her. The old basement showed no signs of soundproofing or recent use. Samuel Thorne was released. And with that, the case fell back into uncertainty. More dangerous than ever. When every physical lead led to a dead end, the lead investigator made a bold decision. To look for answers in the invisible world. Data. Cell towers around the gas station area were reviewed. Hundreds of devices. Thousands of signals. But one signal stood out. A phone appeared for just a few brief seconds. And then vanished. Its location was in an area with no parking lot. No trail. No reason for an ordinary person to stop there in the middle of the night. That device belonged to Julian Moore, 22 years old, living in a nearby town. When Julian's file was opened, the investigation room fell silent. Julian was not a stranger. He had once been Elena's student. A quiet student. Intelligent. Passionate about literature. Often stayed after class to talk with his teacher. A connection no one had ever considered. Now, it appeared with terrifying clarity. Purchase records showed that Julian had been preparing for months. Soundproofing materials. A generator. Concrete. Items meant for something far from an ordinary life. The pieces began to lock into place. This was not random. Not impulsive. It was a plan. Cold. Patient. And built from an obsession that had been growing for years. At dawn on September 14, 2018, 1 year after Elena disappeared, a tactical unit moved into the Skyview area. A place that had once been an old service zone. Abandoned. Forgotten. Much like the pain that had been buried there. Julian Moore's house stood apart, hidden behind dense trees. At night, it nearly vanished from the world. No lights. No sounds. Only the steady hum of a generator coming from a large garage behind the house. When the garage door was forced open, Julian was arrested on the spot. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He simply stood there, like someone waking up from a long, distorted dream. Inside the garage, investigators immediately noticed something wrong. The floor was too flat. Too perfect. Not like old concrete. A thick rubber mat was pulled back. A steel hatch appeared, carefully concealed. When it was opened, the smell of dampness and metal rushed upward, exactly as Elena had described. Below was a concrete staircase leading down into a room partially submerged in water. Swollen soundproof panels. A metal bed frame. A long chain bolted into the wall. It did not resemble a place meant to hold a human being. It resembled a box, designed to erase someone's existence. In the water, investigators found scraps of food, plastic bottles, and an old wrench. The same tool Elena had used to reclaim her life. There was no longer any doubt. This was the hell she had lived in for 365 days. Underscore 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 underscore. In the interrogation room, Julian Moore sat upright. Calm. Unshaken. No remorse. His voice was flat, as if he were telling someone else's story. He said it all began in literature class, with the teacher's gaze, with the feeling of being listened to, of being understood. Admiration slowly turned into obsession. An obsession hardened into a sick belief that Elena belonged to him, that the outside world was unworthy of her. Julian admitted he had followed Elena for a long time. He knew her routines, knew her favorite trails, knew her careful nature, and because of that, he built the perfect trap. He said the mask was not only to hide his identity, it was to ensure Elena would never recognize him as the student who once sat in the back row. He feared the moment of recognition, because that would shatter his absolute control. In Julian's mind, the concrete bunker was not a prison. It was a private world. A place where he was the center. Where time stood still. Where Elena could never leave him. When asked how he felt when Elena escaped, Julian said only one sentence. What hurt him most was not losing her, but the destruction of the perfect order he had built. The room went cold, because it made one thing clear. To Julian, a human being had never been a human being, only a component in his warped world. Underscore 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 underscore. The trial began in January 2019. The courtroom was packed. Media, local residents, eyes waiting for justice. Julian Moore sat at the defendant's table, pale, expressionless. He never once looked up. The evidence was presented. Purchase receipts for construction materials, phone data records, photographs showing Elena being followed before her disappearance, and a black leather journal. Inside the journal, Julian had documented every single day, every psychological change in Elena, like an experiment, without emotion, without regret. Elena did not appear in court. Her mental health would not allow it. Instead, a recorded testimony was played. When Elena appeared on the screen, the courtroom fell silent. She was thinner, her eyes distant, her voice trembling, but clear. She did not ask for punishment. She only described what it felt like to live in darkness. The smell of damp concrete, the sound of metal, and a fear that never ended. 40 minutes passed like a single, long breath. When the recording ended, there was no doubt left. The verdict was delivered. Life imprisonment. No parole. Julian Moore was led away. The doors closed. But that closure could never give Elena back what had been taken from her. Underscore 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 underscore. After the trial, Elena changed her name, left Colorado, left the mountains, left the trails that had once given her peace. She did not return to teaching, not to classrooms, not to her old life, because some wounds cannot be seen, but never truly heal. The garage was demolished. The concrete bunker was filled in. No trace remained, as if it had never existed. But for Elena, and for those who know this story, it will always exist. In memory. Elena's story is not just a criminal case. It is a warning. Evil does not always look like a monster. Sometimes it sits quietly in the back of a classroom, listening, watching, waiting. If you are listening to this now, remember this. Safety is fragile, and kindness, though beautiful, must be protected. Because sometimes the heaviest steel door does not close in a deep forest. It closes very close, right beneath our feet.